Hi, this is Katie. We're gonna practice drawing some shadows today, and we'll talk about shadow and light for a minute first, and then we'll get to practicing some of the techniques that you'll use. You're just gonna use a regular pencil, so pretty straightforward. Let me show you a couple of examples that'll make it a little easier to understand. On every object, there is a form shadow, which is the shadow on the form of the object, and a cast shadow, the shadow that's cast by the object. The light's up here, the light source is up here, and you see a light side of an object, and then you're going to see the shadow that it casts and the shadow that's on the object as well. You can see that there's more light over here. It's shiny and it's kind of bright, and there's some shadow on this part around here that's cast by this part blocking out the light. So it's pretty cool. And also this shadow is cast onto the surface or table. In this case, it's my hand, but you can see that there's a lot of shadow over here because I have a lot of light in this area of the room. Pretty cool. So let me show you a couple of examples. These are art historical people, Kathe Kollwitz and Rembrandt van Rijn. You can see in these examples that there's a really big light source up here at the top of their heads, and then there's a lot of shadow, but that shows you all of the details too. So in this case, especially, there's not a whole lot of like middle part. It's just dark and light. So that's called chiaroscuro. It's an old Italian style of describing light and dark. So pretty exciting to focus on the contrast, and that's what we're going to do today. Quick before we get into the actual drawing process. If you notice this, sometimes there are more than one shadow if you're getting light cast from the window, or if you've got a couple different lamps on. And we're all inside, we've got a lot of lamps on right now, right? I don't know what time of day it is there, but you might have 3 lamps, you might have 3 cast shadows. Just draw what you see. Sometimes the cast shadows or the form shadows are teeny tiny too. An example like that seashell, there's a lot of bumps, so you see a lot of little tiny form shadows. If you can hear the line, if it's really loud, like this, you may be drawing too hard, and it's very hard to erase that later on. So if you draw with soft lines that are quiet, more quiet, if you notice the difference in sound in between those two lines, these smaller thin lines that are lighter will be a lot easier to erase. I'll show you. Trying to erase this dark line is very hard. I'm kind of smudging the pencil around, but if I erase this lighter line that I pressed more lightly and could hardly hear it when I was drawing, it's much easier to erase that. So if you need to erase later on in your drawing, which usually people will erase something at some point, it's much, much easier if you start with a whisper line. I've selected some stuff from around my house. I have this small orange, and I have a pencil sharpener, which is kind of fun to draw. It's a cool shape. Nice rectangle right there. And I have this fancy eraser, which is also a cool rectangle. And I think I like to draw pencils, so I'm going to try to draw that too. I have this teacup that was my grandma's, so we'll put that there. And let's practice drawing this still life. And these things don't need to be overlapping, but they can. Let's think about one thing at a time. So I'm going to start with this teacup first. And I'm going to say, okay, it has this kind of circular shape. I'm just drawing it with my pencil. I don't need to be exact, and I'm using whisper lines to do that. Let's see, there's this nice handle here. So I'm just drawing what I see. I'm drawing lightly in case I need to erase it, but I'm pretty happy with it, and I don't need it to be exact. That's fine. And I'm going to spend some good time on this. Some more of that shadow that's inside the cup. And I might do some cross hatching, which is shading with the lines that cross each other. Whatever you want. That's good. You're just building up layers and layers of light lines when you're doing this shading. So let's see. I would just keep drawing on that for a while, but I'll do that. I'm going to show you the cast shadow of the cup first, and then I'm going to work on it for a minute and get back to you. So here, this cast shadow is the shape of the cup pretty much, but because it's a little bit of a different angle, it looks bigger than the shape of the top of the cup. And then we have this handle in here, and so I'm going to do the same thing, shading with light lines, and come back to you in just a sec. Hi, I'm pretty happy with that. It looks good. It's not exactly the same, but that's fine. And while I was drawing, I probably did that for 5 minutes. I don't know. And I just layered and layered and layered those lines. I did do some cross hatching, but I did some just rounded lines too. And I mean, really, it's just you're building up very, very light pencil lines, so that's pretty fun. And I decided that I'm just going to draw this orange next. It's a very organic looking circle. It has this nice little bump at the top. And then because I'm using light lines, I can build up all of these shadows, and all of the light will become more bright as I build up the shadows. So here we're just thinking about contrast. And there are like lots of little bumps on the orange, but I'm not going to worry about those. Maybe I'll put a couple of them in later. But one really cool thing about this part, the shadow is darker than this part right here. So there is some light kind of bouncing off that table. And that'll make, if I put that cast shadow in, that'll make that look a lot brighter. So I'm going to think about that for a little while. It's the same process, just building up lines. And I would suggest that you do just one thing at a time. Don't worry about doing a whole lot of them. And you can, if you want to, you can stack them on top of each other, put stuff inside your cup if you're also drawing a cup. It's really just kind of whatever you have around your house. I've been doing a lot of these lately because I'm inside and I have stuff that I like. I'll show you that in another video. I'll show you how to make a sketchbook and then have ideas about what to draw in there. But you can do this inside of your sketchbook for sure. Or you can do it with any kind of material that you want. Anything that you have on hand will work. I'm just going to keep drawing on that until I'm happy with it. So I'm pretty happy with this drawing, and I think I'm just going to say it's done. Let's look at the cast shadows on some of these things and the form shadows. And then you should get started drawing. It's super exciting. So if we notice there's a little bit of a cast shadow, there's a dark cast shadow here, but there's a little tiny bit of a cast shadow here on that sharpener. So I can draw that in there. Super light, that can be scribbly. I think scribbly is fun. And this pencil has a really cool cast shadow too. It's darker than the paint on the pencil. So that really helps that line stand out if you draw that in there like that. And there's kind of a rounded cast shadow here, and there's some rounded shapes in the shadows here and in the cup too. So it's a lot of really, really cool and fun things that you can do with this. I wanted to show you this material also before we're through. This is charcoal, and you can use a charcoal pencil or charcoal blocks if you have those around your house. That's really fun for doing this activity because you can get some really dark lines and you do not have to press very hard to get these soft, beautiful soft lines.